I want to start with you, Sunita Narayan, to give us a sense of, are we heading towards that climate emergency? Let's take that last question first with you.
I think we are already in a climate change emergency, Rajdeep. Let's be very clear about this. Today, when we track extreme weather events, what does climate change mean? We are going to get more and more extreme weather events, increased frequency, increased intensity. And when you track this, as we do, we find that there is one extreme weather event a day, almost in India in 2023, and it's rising. The IMD has just put out data for the month of July, just for the month of July. And they are showing you that not only have heavy rainfall events increased, doubled, but also very heavy rainfall events have doubled. We are seeing almost a region getting half the year's rainfall in a matter of 24 hours. So this is climate change. But the point I want to make also, Rajdeep, is that this is not, whether it's Wayanad or Himachal or Delhi, this is not about climate change alone. It is about our willful mismanagement of the environment, of the callous disregard for every rule, regulation that should be operated in an ecologically fragile area. And this is really why you're seeing tragedy after tragedy. I'm saying this, Rajdeep, because there is a very easy cop-out in this to say, what can we do? This is climate change. We must remember this is not climate change alone. Climate change is the tipping factor. It exacerbates the impact. And in a time of high risk of climate change, it means we must do much more to manage our environment, particularly the environment of ecologically fragile areas like the Himalayas, like the Western Ghats, much better than we have been doing today.
In a sense, what you're saying is that these are also partly man-made tragedies. Don't just pass the buck onto climate change. Good point, given what we've just seen in Wayanad. S. Abhilash, Director, Advanced Center for Atmospherics Radar Research at Cochin University. You're there in Kerala. Give us a sense. Do you believe that this is a man-made tragedy? That yes, there was this terrible rainfall, incessant and heavy for a very short duration of time. But could this have been averted had we recognized that these parts of the Western Ghats are ecologically sensitive and perhaps worked to keep people out of these very fragile zones?
Yeah, Rajdeep, actually this is a combination of the event because as Sunita Madam was telling, the extreme weather events are increasing day by day everywhere over Indian region. So that is a fact. But thing is that it is the calamity, the scale of the intensity or the nature of this calamity. If you look at it, is aggravated because of the footprint from the human being. Because most of the anthropogenic activities are making this more waste. Because if you look at the history of Western Ghats, Himalaya itself is not a dormant mountain like a Western Ghats. If you look at the history of Western Ghats, how it evolved with respect to the monsoon rainfall, because all our landscapes were evolved with respect to the rainfall, which is bringing lot of water, which is intercepting with the mountain, and erosion has been happening. So that it is responding to that, and our midland is being built based on that erosion pattern over maybe 6,500 millions of years. So this is what is happening even much before humans came into this land. So that is a fact. But thing is that due to global warming, this extreme weather events are increasing day by day, and that is causing a lot of this extreme event to happen over the Western Ghats. Because in our studies, what we found is that the Southeastern Arabian Sea, close to Kerala coast, it is becoming a hot spot for this mini cloudburst event, because cloudburst events are more common over the sub-Himalayan region. But over this region, it is becoming a kind of mini cloudburst prone area. Earlier, it was happening between Mangalapuram and the Goa coast. That is where the nature of the soil, the structure of the rocks, everything is different from the Kerala region. But the extreme rainfall were happening over that zone. And now that cloud band, the cloud cluster has been expanding towards northern Kerala region. That is bringing copious amount of rain in the northern Kerala region. So this is what is happening over Kerala, and our land is not.
So you're saying it's been happening and building up over this Kerala region. I'm just stopping you for a moment because I want to come to Dr. M.H. Swaminath, since you've been a former secretary for his government of Karnataka. And I want our viewers to remember Wayanad is at that tri-junction where Kerala, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, all these states really have a responsibility. But as you come, of course, across the Western Ghats, it's spread across coastal areas into Goa and eventually the Western Ghats into Maharashtra. We'll come to that, but I want Dr. Swaminath to respond to this charge that Dr. Madhav Gadgil, the noted ecologist, made, and I'm going to play his soundbite. I interviewed him 2 days ago, and he said this was a man-made disaster. And I want you to respond to that, Dr. Swaminath, but let's listen into what Dr. Madhav Gadgil said. His report was, many believe, the defining report for how do you protect the ecologically sensitive Western Ghats. Listen in.
The different political parties have distributed these illegal, mostly illegal, rock quarries amongst themselves. This is owned by Kerala Congress, that is owned by a CPM politician, that is owned by a BJP politician, and so on. So it is their interest that these rock quarries make enormous profits. It is a complete mistake to think that these are to increase the ability of people to eke livelihoods. Not at all. The interventions have been, for example, that around the tea estate there are lots of tourist resorts where they are building lakes and so on, which are further increasing the burden on the geological structure. Nobody is really making any question about that these resorts, which are meant for the opulent and the rich section of the society, are creating much employment. Of course, they are doing nothing of the sort. The people who have died, which you will actually see, these are tea estate laborers. If I have been there, I have personally seen these, what happens. They are forced to live in miserable huts, in ravines. All the good land is used for the enjoyment of the tea planters and their friends. They are forced, these people are forced to live in ravines and dealt with very poor wages and conditions essentially akin to slavery. And it is them who have got washed. This time also all the bodies are of these laborers in these huts close to the ravines.
Dr. Swaminath, you want to respond to what you just heard? Here is Dr. Madhav Gadgil virtually suggesting what happened in Wayanad is a man-made tragedy. You heard Sunita Narayan at the outset also suggesting humans cannot shirk responsibility for what is happening to nature. Your response, given the fact that only today we are told the centre has finally issued a draft notification to declare over 56,800 square kilometers of the Western Ghats across 6 states as ecologically sensitive.
Oh, that is a very good news, Zip. See, I partially agree with Dr. Gadgil, and when this report was prepared, I was also associated with this. He requested me to prepare a special chapter, on the infrastructure development exclusively in the Western Ghat area in the last 50 years, and I also prepared it. And I participated, I think, throughout, when we had interaction with the scientists, and also various stakeholders during preparation of Madhav Gadgil's report. It's a well prepared report, and very comprehensively we have delineated the area into ecologically sensitive areas of 1, 2, 3, and all. And we have said ecologically 1 and 2 are highly sensitive, and we have said in ecologically sensitive areas nothing can be done exclusively because they're highly sensitive, because mountain regions and all. And number 2, some activities which are already existing, like maybe resorts, and other non-green activities, maybe some of the small industries which are in orange category can be continued, and nothing further to be promoted there. And in the third category, it is a cultured area which has been cultivated for the thousands of years, and people are allowed to do their job within, of course, subject to the environmental conditions like orange category, red category industries and all that we did. There is no doubt on that. What Madhav Gadgil just now spoke is,
but no one acted on it, sir. Sir, I'm sorry to stop. Sir, no one acted, whether it's the Karnataka government, Kerala government, Goa government, Maharashtra government, none of the governments acted on that report. Is it because there are vested interests that, or is it simply because it's difficult to achieve this balance between livelihoods and nature?
Exactly, I agree. I mean, there were a lot of concern expressed by the local stakeholders, particularly people in the zone 2 area. We said certain activities cannot be done at all. There were quite a few powerful lobbying sectors. I don't want to tell them. And those people certainly brought some pressure on the government to not to implement it. And but certainly it could have been partially it could have been implemented, particularly zone 1 could have been protected. And if it would not have happened, what happened in Wayanad, if it really completely protected, removed the people from those areas. And what Gadgil Saab is talking now, it is about the how the impact of climate change on the vulnerable section of the people who are living in the huts and all. No, I completely agree with him. But what we really today discuss, is what are the causes, for this, why these extreme events are happening, these EREs, are happening, particularly in the last, I think, 5 years, after 1990, I think nearly 137 EREs have happened in India. And India accounts for nearly 41% of our disasters are accounted for these floods, and nearly I think 16 to 17% to the landslides. Though we have larger areas identified, not mapped, in the Himalayan region, 80% of the region vulnerable for these landslides. So 12% area in the Western Ghats. Still, they are highly sensitive. But this particular event that happened in Wayanad is a really extreme event where more than 200 millimeter rainfall occurs very rarely in India. It happens only in, I think, on average, 3 days till from 1930 to 1980 or 1990. It was 3.5 days in a year. Extreme, exceeding 200 millimeter. Now it has increased to 5.7 days. I mean, it need not be due to climate change, but certainly there is a pattern emerging. So we have to wait for the data to be collated, and analyzed. But so, certainly,
I mean, the question
more than 200 millimeter has increased, particularly in the urban cities like Mumbai. Mumbai used to witness only 2 days, 3 days in a year of exceeding 200 millimeter. But in the recent time, it has happened in 5 days, 4 days, 4 times. That means and also months have changed. It used to happen in July, now it happens up to September also. So we know which are the dates, which are the weeks which are highly vulnerable for 200 more millimeter rainfall. See, up to 120 we can manage. 200 millimeter, it is beyond anyone's control to do anything. The response time will be very less.
No, you're saying it's beyond. No, but sir, I take your point that you're saying that these are extreme events. It becomes increasingly tough to manage. But the fact is, and I want to bring in at this moment Akshay Deoras, research scientist, National Center for Atmospheric Sciences at Reading. Is India just not prepared for it? We've set up the debate with Sunita Narayan saying, just don't blame climate change. Look at what we've done to our environment over the last decade and more. Is it something preventable in some way, Akshay? Is there a sense that we don't have the systems in place to handle these extreme events as they get more and more frequent?
We are not prepared for sure. And this is one classic example that justifies what I'm saying. And if you just look at the overall situation that is happening in India, see, let's be very clear. The science is very clear that extreme rainfall events and even extreme weather events are going up. And it's all because of anthropogenic climate change, right? And the global warming continues to accelerate. See, what happens is that we cannot stop rainfall. We can, of course, we'll be able to sort of reduce the number of extreme events, but that all depends on how drastically we cut down our greenhouse gases, the emission of that, and that is going to take time. But we can't just wait for that to happen because, like I said, it takes time. So the other thing is that if you have a situation where people are living and, wherever it's 500 millimeters rainfall happening in 2 days, they are unfortunately bound to get killed because today it's 500, tomorrow it could be 700, today we have 300 deaths, tomorrow it could be 500 deaths. So it all depends on the forecasting system and the alerting system that needs to be robust. I'm very sad to say that the system is not that robust as of now.
Can I also bring in Sandeep Chachra at this moment? Sandeep, can you hear me?
Absolutely. Thank you, Rajdeep.
Yeah, Sandeep, you may have caught a bit of what Akshay said, and Akshay seemingly suggesting that, you need to wake up and recognize the kind of challenge that you're now facing. Do you believe that there is that recognition, there is an understanding within policy makers as to the extent of challenges that face us if we don't respond to climate change effectively with policy interventions? Is that there? Is there realization there that we are already in a climate emergency?
There is a social recognition. I work on the ground and I see communities who are impacted, Rajdeep, whether it's workers, whether it's agricultural workers, whether it's fisher folk, whether it's nomadic pastoralists, whether it's the entire working classes of India. So there is a huge social recognition that things are not what they used to be, and not just the debate that you were framing in nature versus livelihood. The tipping point has become lives versus livelihoods. So it's almost the question of lives versus livelihoods. So there's a social recognition, but sadly, policy system, policy making establishment lags behind it. And lags behind it substantially. So I think that goes to the debate on democratic policy making and inclusive and participatory policy making. Quite a separate chapter, but you had Dr. Madhav Gadgil, and Gadgil report, if you remember, in 2011 was dismissed as being too environmentally friendly and not in tune with ground realities. And I think sadly, we have come to a time where this debate is really live. It's extreme weather events were talked of, the intensity and frequency by Sunita ji, but it's clearly a man-made situation. We know what is happening. Are we prepared for it? Have we prepared for it? We know, for instance, this is not a sudden pattern. We know that in any case, we always knew that much of India's rainfall happens in a 3-month period. And we know that this has shifted, and we know those patterns. We know the intensity has shifted. So what has been our preparedness to it, whether it's towns or whether it's the countryside? So the fate of both towns and what is called the urban areas and the rural areas intertwined in this kind of a situation. So I think we need to recognize that, and to sort of let off the hook, design, planning, preparedness systems, adaptation systems, climate mitigation systems. We are quite away from bringing that into policy making. Let me bring a small fact here. Dr. Gadgil spoke about, in the brief video, he spoke about the differential impact of climate change and these changing patterns on different segments of society. He was talking of, in this case, almost the bonded conditions of tea estate and tea plantation workers. So we know there is differential impact. We know that they are pushed into untenable situations, untenable living situations, untenable habitats, fragile habitats, whether it's the plantation sites of Kerala that we're talking of, or the Western Ghats, or whether it's the cities where they are pushed into absolutely untenable, sort of water bodies or next to the rivers. We've seen that all across, or in landslide prone areas in the mountain cities of India, in those areas. So we know that the impact is going to be differential, much high on their lives, on their habitats, on their livelihoods, on their incomes, but also on their expenditures. And the pathway to come out of such torture is extremely tenuous for them. And what are we doing? What is the sort of policy recognition on that? For long, activists working on the ground have been asking for loss and damage compensation mechanism for livelihoods, but as well as for habitats. And we see, what do we see instead? A whole range, a growing populace of what is called climate migrants. So, but the policy hasn't responded. The policy making establishment hasn't responded. So yes, there's a global debate. Yeah, go ahead, please.
So you're saying policymakers are a step behind in a way, but on the ground, is there a recognition is the question?